President Trump's decision to raise tariffs on steel and aluminum imports from 25 to 50%.
Going to bring it from 25% to 50%, the tariffs.
Digesting the president's latest post on Truth Social, warning that the...
Take a look at what's going on in America at the moment. Jobs are being lost, manufacturing are stalling, and prices are going up. And it's not due to a financial crisis, a pandemic, or even a war. It's made of aluminum, one of the most rapid industrial transformations in North America's history has been brought on by a single tariff decision. The worst part is still to come. Canada quietly won the battle while Washington showed off its power with a 50% tariff. The administration of former President Trump increased import duties on aluminum from 10% to 50% on June 7, 2025. Protecting American business is the declared justification. In actuality, the fallout was severe within 3 weeks. Almost immediately, the biggest aluminum manufacturer in America, Alcoa, announced that at least 20,000 direct jobs had been lost at its smelters. Operations became unsustainable due to rising input and energy expenses, and smelters weren't the end of that suffering. Through building, maintenance, packing, logistics, and transportation, it spread like wildfire. More than 100,000 American jobs were either lost or in jeopardy by the middle of July, and it gets worse from here. The price of aluminum soared in the United States. Between late 2024 and mid-2025, prices increased by almost 190%. For example, an Indiana soda plant. A few months prior, they were spending roughly $2,200 for each ton of aluminum. That identical ton now costs almost $6,400. The only option available to retailers was to pass those expenses on to you. As a result, that 99-cent drink can is now worth $1.29. In a matter of weeks, a Walmart cooking set that cost $59 rose to $70. And no, it hasn't just appeared in your paycheck. Therefore, while Americans are experiencing pressure at the hardware store, grocery store, and even Apple Canada is making money from the store. Cheap, clean hydropower is Canada's strongest suit. Smelters in Quebec pay only 4.5 cents per kilowatt hour for power. The benefit is clear when you contrast that with 8 or 9 cents in industrialized U.S. states. However, it's cleaner power as well as less expensive power. This is significant since international markets, including those in Europe, Japan, and South Korea, are requesting low-emission metals. Canada is in a great position to provide. It is demonstrated by the numbers. The first quarter of 2025 saw a 21% increase in Canadian aluminum shipments compared to the previous year. There is a growth in new contracts in cities like Sagunt, Kitiat, and Septi. Canadian aluminum with low emissions is being seized to manufacture solar panels in Seoul, cookware in France, and electric vehicles in Germany. In the meanwhile, the U.S., they are ignoring producers. In Quebec, a German bike frame company that formerly purchased 2,000 tons of aluminum annually has now agreed to a 3-year contract with Rio Tinto Alcan. The rationale is that they save 15% per ton using aluminum from Canada. You can see how rapidly America is losing market share when you multiply it across international industries. Let's take it home, though. This goes beyond manufacturing and international transactions. It has to do with your wallet. For instance, the price of a MacBook Air M3 may increase by $120 this year. It's not because Apple become avaricious all of a sudden, but rather because the aluminum used to construct its frame costs more. Cans of Pepsi, beer, cookware, computers, and auto parts. The cost of everyday products is increasing. Here's the twist now. There were no raucous demonstrations, heated news conferences, or counter-tariffs in Canada's response. There was silence in Ottawa. And it played the most astute hand of all in that stillness. The government of Prime Minister Carney used a two-pronged strategy and diplomatic approach. Canada subtly complained to the World Trade Organization, claiming that America's 50% duty violated international trade regulations. Conversely, it intensified its efforts to diversify away from the U.S. market. Trade negotiations grew with South Korea, the EU, ASEAN, and possibly India. At home, Ottawa funded new smelters, recycling facilities, and semiconductor technology as part of its enormous subsidies for the clean aluminum industry. To put it another way, Canadians are fully supporting the country's efforts to make aluminum a key component of its industrial future. According to a June 2025 Angus Reid survey, 91% of Canadians are in favor of lessening their reliance on the U.S. for economic help. That's the biggest figure in over 10 years. This is more than just aluminum to them. It has to do with freedom. The U.S. was severely impacted. By mid-2025, Canada's proportion of aluminum exports to the U.S. had dropped to 68%, the lowest level since the signing of NAFTA, from 78% in 2024. That's a decrease of 10 points in less than a year. And it's difficult for the U.S. to replace that supply. Rather, you're observing the impacts of ripples. With the rising cost of packaging, restaurants are finding it difficult to control expenses. Every week, retailers change their prices. And the agony is more acute than ever in Ohio, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, the industrial heartland of America. Once bustling with activity, factories are now idle or closing. More than 14,000 jobs were lost in the Midwest between June and July alone, according to a research from the Manufacturing Institute. Customer trust in the Great Lakes. The region has fallen to its lowest level since the 2020 CO crash. These aren't only figures. They're families, communities, and means of subsistence. Meanwhile, new contracts and foreign investment are booming in Canada's industrial communities. Through trade rather than treaties or tanks, there is a subtle but noticeable change in power. Winners and losers in the conventional sense are not relevant here. It concerns who does and who does not adapt. In order to secure its position as a clean aluminum superpower, Canada is actively restructuring its economy and forging connections with Asia and Europe. Meanwhile, people are losing their jobs, consumers are paying more, and industries are contracting in the U.S., all for the sake of safety. Thus, this is the true question. When America's nearest neighbor is playing offensive, how long can America afford to play defense? Because, don't error, the supply chains are changing. The markets are shifting. Furthermore, this temporary tax may signal the start of a long-term downturn in U.S. industrial production if Washington doesn't immediately reconsider its trade policy.